Hello folks, I get asked quite a lot about what I'm doing when I'm actually tracking vocals in the studio. If I was to have a vocalist in the recording booth, from my preamp, if you look at the 1176, you can see where my mouse is now. I tend to make sure my vocals are peaking, not averaging, peaking around about any loud parts, -12, -6, really pushing it a little bit for me, but I like to keep in a really comfortable zone. That's off my preamp, which is an external hardware preamp, okay? Sometimes I'll actually use a preamp on the little old Mackie desk if it's nothing that's kind of wants great detail. It's all right, it does a good job, don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing it. I just have a couple of options, that's all, depending on what the source is, the type of singer, whether it's a rapper or an actual singer with a great range or a vocalist, you know, or a rock guy, so it all depends. But say we're just using one preamp, I'll get that out in a minute. One preamp, I would be peaking around about here-ish, peaks only. I've lent the other way a little bit where I've stopped tracking with compression and EQ. The only EQ I would apply would probably be something around about 12K, just a 2 to 3 dB, a little boost around about 12K. That's it. And I would roll off maybe around about 70, 80 hertz, something like that. They're just the bottom end. And that's literally the only EQ that I do when I'm tracking now. I've got a reasonable sounding room, so I'm quite fortunate on that front. But when people see me tweaking the likes of this, the SSL, the UAD SSL 4000E channel strip, all I'm doing is I'm monitoring, I'm actually listening. It's for their benefit more than anything. I do put a little bit of compression on. I'll wallop the compressor up full. I don't know if you can see it at the threshold, so that I'm right up full. And then all I do is just bring the ratio back until I start to get a little bit of a tickle on that light there. And that just kind of helps them to hear it with a little bit more of a subdued but slightly compressed tone to it as well. And I use it sometimes to colour things on their vocals as they're recording. So they're not being tracked, they're being recorded, bypassed, sorry, that's just being monitored through that. Then the next thing I do is I'll just set the attack and release here on my 1176, and I use this just to move the needle ever so slightly. If they do something that's a little bit dynamic, I'm probably going to at the most hit 3 dB of gain reduction on it. That's the maximum that I'll go for. This needle isn't moving 90% of the time. Just every now and again you'll get a little bloop, a little blip over like that. It doesn't make that noise where it goes bloop. That's just me making it a little bit more dramatic. And then I sometimes will follow that with the classic LA2A, and I'm kind of, again, just smoothing things over 2 dB tops on that. This is just for monitoring purposes. So I will then cue them up there, as you can see down there. I'll give them a separate headphone mix, which is all set up here with a little bit of reverb on, and they get a completely different mix to what I'm hearing in the studio from the monitors. They're hearing all this stuff going through to their headphones, which makes it sound nice and compressed and slick and polished, whereas I'm actually just tracking. I can even wallop this up on here in the mixes for them so that you get everything really loud, or depending on what they're looking for. But I'm actually still, no matter what any of these adjustments do, I'm still only recording around about there with a 2 to 3 dB boost around about 12K. That's it. Everything that is going on here is kind of show for the singer. They get to feel that they're running through all the plugins, and it makes their mix in the vocal booth more tight, punchy, and it helps them to create a better performance vocally. Sometimes I will, if I'm feeling confident and I've worked with the singer before, might even just click that button and actually print some of the settings that I've got, some of my presets in these plugins. It's just a little bit of a tweak, and I'll print with those as well. So it could be dependent on what's going on, but for safety's sake, if I was you and you're lucky enough to have a UAD piece of kit, I would definitely look at probably tracking peaks around about there, no more, kind of averaging around about here-ish, peaking there, 6 at the maximum, you know, you get kind of -6-ish. And then I just, like I say, monitor everything through the plugins. If I do feel like recording, I'll put that on, and I might just want an LA 2A on it, and I'll just mute those, and that's going to be printed on the vocal recording with the levels of this. So the most important part for me in this whole process is getting the recording stage, the level the best I can. I'll take a few minutes doing that on a singer or a drum or a guitar, whatever it is I'm tracking. I'll make sure I'm on that sweet spot, just purely for the preamp as well. That likes to be at a certain place, as does the converters in the UAD stuff. So you're giving yourself the best possible shot on how to track something with the optimum levels, and it just works for me. It's great. So like I say, all these are just purely for monitoring purposes, though I can click that button there and that will actually print all three of those, if they're all activated, onto the track that I am recording. If you are going to try that, I would suggest you don't try it on anything that's of any consequence, because if you get that wrong, and that wrong, you're in trouble. You've got to go again. So you're better off really experimenting, if you are going to experiment with anything that you've tracked like that, in post-production, after you've recorded it, just literally have a play with your plugins. When you've got that tracked and you're ready to experiment, you can put a compressor on, a channel strip or whatever you want to do, and you're not going to do any damage. You can still take them off and go back to the original recordings. Okay, so that's just a little insight into how I track a lot of vocals and other instruments in my UAD Apollo stuff. Thanks for watching. Please give the channel a like and a subscribe. And if you're looking for any mixing work or recording work or guitar lessons, especially little rock lessons, then just hit me up with a nice little personal message and I'll get back to you with some prices and we can take it from there. Speak to you all very soon. Stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you soon.